Hey everyone, hope you've had an amazing week as usual. Now this week I have something unusual to show you, and it is this bike here. Now if you're an old school rider like me, you'll recognize this straight away as being a 1999 to about 2002 Monty 221 X-Lite. This is a mod trials bike and it's pretty weird looking, isn't it? This is actually one of the first trials bikes that came without a saddle. Now, obviously the frame design is a little bit weird. It's almost like they tried to keep some essence of a seat. And it has a little kink in there which supposedly you can sit on, but it is just a tube, so how comfy that is, I can tell you, it's not very comfy at all. But this was a top of the range mod trials bike from back in the day, and I picked this up for a bargain. And I actually used to ride one of these back in about 2000 to 2001. And it's my only experience of ever riding a mod trials bike. And by a mod, if you're not a trials rider, mod means 20-inch wheels. And that's actually why these bikes are a little bit weird to start with, because it doesn't actually have two 20-inch wheels. The rear wheel is actually 19-inch, and combine that with a 2.5 tire, it actually ends up with a similar outer circumference as a 20-inch wheel with a smaller tire. Monty is kind of like an offshoot of Montesa moto trials bikes from back in the day, and I think they just carried over some of the technologies like the smaller rear wheel and bigger tyre compared with the front. And yeah, that's something that actually is still continued on mod trials bikes to this day. Now this bike in particular I got because it's actually one of the better examples I've seen of this era. It's pretty much entirely original spec on this, and that includes a lot of things which were a little bit on the fragile side. For example, the brake hoses. These are the original clear blue brake hoses, and yeah, these were notorious for snapping. It even has the Monty brake splitter, which again, if you were a bit ham-fisted trying to fit the hoses onto these, they would easily snap. And speaking of things that snap, these frames were notorious for breaking, so to find one that isn't cracked, doesn't even have any dents on it, but to be fair, it does have quite a few scratches, I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get this. The keen-eyed among you may have noticed this frame floating about online. It was on Pink Bike Buy and Sale, but the owner of it did me a great deal, so thanks a lot to him if you're watching. And I'm stoked to finally get my hands on a bike that I used to have back in the day. It's not all original parts though. There's a couple of things which have been changed. Firstly, the tyres. Now I did actually get the original tan wall Monty tyres for this, and it looks amazing. They're such cool tyres, but they're rare as hen's teeth. I was so stoked to get a pair. Unfortunately, the front tyre, with them being over 20 years old, had perished to the point that it just exploded. And it kind of didn't make sense in my head to run mismatched tyres. Now fortunately the bike did come with these Maxxis tyres. It would be cool if Schwalbe made some, but they never made any in the 19-inch size. These are slightly more modern, but still kind of correct to the era. Cesar Canas, who helped design these bikes, rode for Monty for years, actually helped develop these tyres, so they do tie in quite nicely. Other than the tyres, the brake pads are upgraded. I don't think Monty brake pads even exist anywhere on the planet anymore. And the other upgrade is the freewheel. Now I think these bikes came originally with a Dicta freewheel with about 18 engagement points, so I'm really pleased it's been upgraded with a modern freewheel with about 100 engagement points. That will make this bike not only a lot easier to ride, but probably a lot safer as well, as those Dicta ones, they weren't the most reliable. One slightly interesting thing, considering last week's video was at Pinned headquarters talking about short crank lengths, this Monty was one of the first bikes that came with shorter cranks. I don't know the exact reasoning, and maybe it was simply for ground clearance, maybe it was for strength, but these come in a slightly odd 158mm length, which yeah, is a little bit random. Feels a little bit weird pedaling it, but they did it for a reason. If anyone knows why in the comments, please let me know. Now I've brought this bike to Cambus Barron in Stirling, to one of my favorite places, the quarry there, and I'm gonna attempt to ride this bike, but I'm gonna have a big disclaimer here and say that I'm gonna be really bad at riding this bike. I'm bad at riding 20-inch bikes to begin with. This one being so old, it may just explode. I'm a little bit concerned about riding it, especially because I can't get these brakes to work very well. And it doesn't help that my dislocated finger still hasn't healed properly, and it's actually still pretty painful to pull the back brake. And these brakes in particular need to be pulled really hard. So I am actually really scared that I'm just going to try and go on the back wheel and just slip off. But either way, this bike is over 20 years old. I'm going to take it fairly easy. I'm going to ride it fairly old school and see how I get on. So let's get started. Big bash plate, BIU style. Hopefully you can see, well, what I mean hopefully you can see, there's no missing this green, even with all this green background. I'm actually really stoked to manage to find a green version of this. I used to have, well, firstly the yellow version, and then I had their kind of white, black and red one. I do have some real grainy, early 2000s digital photos of those, but yeah, this is the color I actually always wanted. So yeah, pretty stoked, but let's talk, let's find some more stuff. Might be biting off more than I can chew here. It may seem super destructive to jump to frame on a rock like that, but those were well within the rules when this bike was popular. And actually it was kind of encouraged because this bike has a massive bash plate to make a more stable platform when you do go to frame. And that's actually one reason why these frames didn't last very long, because all that force is being put into the down tube and they tend to crack. Now those rules back then were BIU rules where, yeah, you were allowed to use your pedals, your bash guard, as well as your tyres to get over obstacles, and all the top riders, to get up the biggest move, would nearly always try to aim and get a pedal on it as a bit of a hook. These days, most competitions are run UCI rules where you're only allowed to touch your tyres, and you get penalised if your pedals or bash plate or bash ring touches, and actually a lot of bikes these days don't have bash plates and don't have bash rings. But that said, BIU rules are still around. It's popular in Japan, the Czech Republic for example, so this style of riding isn't dead. I used to ride all the BIU comps and then I swapped to UCI style, and I actually really didn't like the BIU thing. I didn't think it was as smooth if you basically scrape your frame on stuff. But these days, I don't know, it's kind of fun, and it's definitely its own type of skill to be able to land on your frame and stay gripped. So yeah, still have a lot of respect for BIU riders. I'm actually pretty stoked to have got up that as well. Right, where to now? Speaking of UCI versus BIU, UCI these days tend to be a lot of man-made competitions with big rocks where you have to get over, big power moves, get back down, get up another rock, back down again, and it's hardly ever held on natural. Whereas BIU, certainly back in the day, was held kind of up bankings like this. Anyone who's ridden comps back in the day, especially in the UK, will know all about hopping up and down muddy bankings. And this one's quite a tech one. I actually don't know if I can get up this. It's definitely a skill on its own. Like I said, we're going to bash guard, trying to get up muddy bankings like this. It's not easy, just like UCI power moves isn't easy. It's just different. Let's see if I can actually do this and just watch how much of my pedals I end up using on this. BIU. Oh no, how did that slip? I thought I was on that no problem. Oh, come on. That front brake has no desire to work. How is that just not working? It's like I mentioned, these brakes are just terrible. So it is pretty much the industry standard front trials brake. It is just a Magura HS33, and even though it's an older model, these are still renowned as being really good, and this year especially is meant to be one of the better years, but I just never ever have got on with Magura rim brakes, especially on the front. I just cannot get this to have any bite or hold. I don't know whether it's because these rims are just really soft, but I've tried all kinds of brake pads on there and it's just not working. Give me a V-brake or a disc brake any day. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Ow. You have to pull these brakes so hard. That's insane. I'm actually going to let some air out my tyres. I just pumped them up. I don't know what I pumped them up to. Possibly on the hard side. Let's try that. That's it, I'll get this no problem now. I'll tell you what would help if I had a full Monty skin suit like they had back in the day. Definitely be getting up it then. Oh my god, this bit's disgusting. Right, big jump. Oh, this next bit's horrible. Oh dear, come on. Back tyre's got no grip there. Oh, this is not good. Not good. Come on. No, come on. Come on. Yo. Oh. Oh my word, how did I get up that? I'm actually really surprised I got up that. That is disgusting. So that would be essentially one part of a trial section from back in the day, BRU style. Doesn't matter how you get up, as long as you don't put your foot or a hand down, it counts. I'm actually generally quite happy and surprised I got up that. That is such a loose banking, but yeah, that's exactly how this bike should be ridden. How cool is this? Absolutely asking to be hopped along. Proper old school. Right, let's hop along it. Yo, that felt so old school side hopping that. Ah, that is really cool. Not sure how it looks, but it felt awesome. Yo, this bike's got some spring. Well, colour me surprised. This back tyre definitely got some spring if you can control it. I'm actually really surprised with that. This old bike rips. When this bike was released, it was pretty much the top tier trials bike you could get for a number of years, and it was also the lightest production trials bike as well. One way they managed to get this so light is with the frame weights. This frame is super lightweight, and they did that pretty much by not having any needless CNCing or extra gussets. Now it does have some gussets because the first version of this didn't have any and they broke super quickly, so it does have some gussets up here, but one thing it doesn't have is any built-in bracing around the back brake. Now it does have this random booster on the underside which kind of does a little bit, but the frame still splays apart quite a lot when you pull this back brake, so this brake does actually slip quite a lot, especially backwards, which is pretty much the direction you don't want it to slip. So a lot of people did actually put extra boosters on the back here, and I was tempted to do that, but I've kept it standard. But that's one reason why I'm scared of this back brake slipping, even with a grind and good pads. But that fear isn't going to stop me from trying to get over this log, which is disgusting. Oh no. Oh, come on. Oh boy. Ah, slipping brakes, no accuracy. I didn't think this was going to be as hard as this. Because my brakes are slipping, I'm going to resort to drastic measures. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen a story I put up the other day. It was a bit risky. I'm surprised I didn't get a warning for it, but I posted a picture of this, which kind of looks like an illegal substance, but I can assure you, this is just a block of tar, bitumen. You can find this kind of on roadsides. This came with an old school bike that I got recently. And back in the day, this used to be a great way to basically make your brakes bite. You simply rub this on the rims and it makes them sticky, and you get more bite, you get more hold, and this was a lifesaver. Until grinds came along. Grinds generally are a more reliable way to get good braking performance, especially in the wet, because if you try to use tar in the rain, you may as well have no brakes. So I'm going to rub this on the rims and hopefully my brakes will slip slightly less, and I'll just have to pray it doesn't rain. That's a slippy rock. There's been lots of tree felling around here, and I've never noticed this bunch of rocks here before. They look really cool. I like this style of rock, so I'm gonna try and BIU my way all over them. We've got side hops over here. Okay, this has got a lot bigger now I've got next to it. I was kind of hoping I could get this to both wheels, but it may have to just be to pedal or something. We'll see if it can contain the bounce. Oh, almost first try. It's amazing how much you can just get your weight right over the back wheel on it. I'm really happy with that. Over bar height on a 20-odd-year-old bike. Sweet. What else can I do on this rock? This is a nice rock. I like this rock. Oh, it's just big enough to be pretty scary, especially with the overhang. That's actually a really sharp edge. You could cut a tree down with that. Right, come on, control it, control it. Can't do too many hops, otherwise my fingers get tired. Wow! When you do get the bounce, it flings you. That's insane. I am so surprised I didn't get a puncture then. Landed right in the sharp edge, pretty harsh. But so far it's holding up. Took a bit of a while to tame that tyre, but like my experience is showing, once you do, it's got some bounce to it. So if I thought I was biting off more than I could chew with that last one, I definitely am with this one. I spotted it from the rock I was just riding, and I reckon if I was on a modern 26 inch, I could maybe get up that to hook, something like that, get over it. On this bike, I'm wondering whether I can side up and get it to pedal and just kind of smoosh my way over it. Sorry, bike. I reckon I can definitely get a pedal on that though. Oh, that's almost, that is a long way. That is a real long way. No way. Oh, my brakes. I am well surprised by that. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. Proper BIU style. Not done that for years. Well, after that shock of getting up that massive rock, well, I say massive, I looked at the footage and it looks tiny, but believe me, it felt big. I'm gonna call that the end of the video now. It's always good to leave things on a high, plus I've noticed this pedal is loose and it requires a spanner, which I don't have. I don't fancy ruining these cranks. Plus, I've managed to do quite a lot today. It is 5:30, rush hour traffic is in full effect, and I need to go home and get my dinner. So that was a brilliant ride, and what a bike. I say what a bike, it's horrible to ride, but for back in the day, this was the best bike you could get. I spent about a year and a half, maybe 2 years on one of these, but I'm a 26-inch wheel guy. I started on 26-inch, went to one of these after seeing comp riders do pretty well on them, had a year or so on it, wasn't for me, went back to 26, haven't looked back since. And I know a lot of you guys have wanted me to ride a 20-inch comp bike, and perhaps this isn't what you had in mind, but I hope this satisfies you at least a little bit. I think if I was to improve this bike, I would definitely put a booster on the back, I don't know, get these brakes working somehow. Maybe even have a disc brake on the front, although there are literally no mounts at all. When I had one of these bikes, I did have a disc on the front and I really liked it. I'm also really pleased to find some really cool new rocks in this quarry. Definitely need to come spend more time here, both on trials bikes and the mountain bike. I'd love to know your thoughts on this video and this bike. I'm sure a lot of you guys did have one of these back in the day. Also, a lot of you guys have probably never seen this before in your life and you're thinking, what the hell is this? So hopefully some education for you and some nostalgia for the rest of you. But thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna go home, rest my finger, which fortunately did let me film this video today, and I will catch you next week with hopefully some mountain bikey type content. It won't be riding just yet, but something good has happened. I'll let you know next week, so take care everyone, bye bye.